This story happened 5 years ago. I have my own house and live sort of out there. I don't get many people at my front door. So one day as I was having some morning coffee, I heard the sound of my doorbell ring. I was slightly surprised by this, so I walked over and looked out the window. It looked to be one of those door-to-door salesmen or something like that. The guy wore a jacket and had a sort of clipboard with a pen in his hand. As I looked out the window, he noticed me and gave a friendly wave. I decided to go to the door and answer it, and just tell him that whatever he was selling, I was not interested in. I opened the door and greeted him. He said hi and complimented me on my house. I said thanks, but anything he was offering, I really wasn't interested in. Then I saw 3 men appear out of the side of the house that I couldn't see from my angle. They all started running towards me, and I tried to slam the door shut, but the salesman guy stuck himself in the way, and before I knew it, there were 4 guys in my house with me. One of them grabbed me by the arms, and another one told me that they needed some things, and I was going to wait in my room until they got it. They then stated that if I had enough valuables for them, they wouldn't hurt me. Now, I had a few valuable things in my house, but I didn't know what they wanted, and the thought of them hurting me made me want to get away. One of the men began to lead me down the hallway, and as he did, he gripped onto my right arm. The other men started to walk around the house in all different directions. I had an idea, and I knew it was a big risk, but I guess I just had a rush of adrenaline in the moment. As soon as we were passing by the bathroom in the hallway, I tugged away as fast as I could and broke free from the man's grip. I then got into the bathroom and slammed the door shut and locked it as quick as I could. The man was really close to getting in, but I think he was a little caught off guard by my actions. I knew he was going to try to break the door down, and I heard him try as soon as he realized the door was locked. The guy was pretty big, so I didn't doubt that he would be able to knock the door down before long. So I quickly opened up the bathroom window as fast as I could. It took me a little while, probably about 30 seconds, but once I did, I was able to just barely squeeze out the window and get outside. Once I was outside, I began to run as fast as I could towards the neighbor's house. It took me a while to get there, and I'm pretty sure one of the men went out of the house to chase me, because I heard running in the backyard, but I sure didn't stop to look. I finally got to the front door of one of my neighbors and knocked on it as loud as I could and fast. I looked around but didn't see anybody coming after me at the moment. They opened the door after a little while, and I told them what was going on. My neighbor Margaret let me stay inside her house, and I called the police. They arrived a short time later, but by then, all the men were gone. When I got back to my house, it was a huge mess. They hadn't really stolen anything, but more so vandalized the place, breaking lots of things and just overall causing a huge mess. I had to use my insurance, but at the end of the day, I was just happy to be all right. I am 23 years old and recently graduated from college. I have a job, but I'm still living with my parents until I get a little more money saved up. In the meantime, I've been living in my bedroom in the basement. It's pretty nice, and I pretty much have my own space down there and have the whole basement. The basement is finished and has my bedroom along with the spare in the hallway. There's also a bathroom down there, and then a large living room area with a TV and such near the stairs to the upper level of the house. One day I had gotten home from work at about 9 p.m. and went down to my room to just relax and watch some Netflix. My parents were gone, so I was alone in the house. I got some food from upstairs and then went down and started a show. I would guess maybe 30 minutes later, I suddenly heard the sound of glass breaking coming from upstairs. I paused my show and listened closely. Could it have been my parents? I listened for their voices, but I didn't hear anything. Then I started to get a horrible feeling. I froze and started to hear footsteps walking around from upstairs. I then heard a voice, but it wasn't the voice of any of my parents. It was a younger sounding man's voice, and then another man's voice. I couldn't make out anything that they were saying, but I could just barely hear the sounds of their voices. At that point, I knew someone had broken into our home. I got out my phone and called the police as quietly as I could, reporting a break-in. I told them to hurry, and they told me they would have the next available police come to our house. Then all I could do was wait. I heard them moving around upstairs, and I was afraid to make a sound. I sat there on my bed, hoping they wouldn't come downstairs, and it sounded like they weren't going to. But then about a minute later, I heard the noise of someone walking down the stairs. Each step that they went down, I panicked more and more. When they had reached the bottom, I realized the possible danger that I was in, and I quietly went to my closet and hid inside of it. I closed the door as quietly as I possibly could. Being in there made it harder for me to hear where the men were, but if I listened really closely, I could sort of tell. I heard them walking around, and eventually they made their way to the hallway. My heart started racing at probably about the fastest rate it ever has. I heard footsteps get to the end of the hall where my bedroom was. Then I heard the door open. I closed my eyes and held my breath. But shortly after it opened, I heard footsteps walking back away. I continued to hear them walk around downstairs for a bit. Then I finally started to hear police sirens. The men then went back upstairs, and I stopped hearing them completely. The police arrived a few minutes later, and I finally left my bedroom. As I got out, the police told me they were in pursuit of the vehicle that the man had been in, and later that day they ended up being caught. They had broken in through an upstairs window and stolen several valuable items we had in our house. I guess they didn't see anything worth taking in my room, because they seemed to just open the door and then walk away. My parents were shocked when they got home, but they were overall just glad that I was all right. About a year ago, my wife and I were having a fire in our backyard with a few friends. It was something that we occasionally did on weekends, or whenever really. When it got to be sort of late and our friends left, we put out the fire and went inside for the night. I was pretty exhausted, so I fell asleep really quickly. However, I was woken up in the night by something. I didn't know exactly what it was that woke me up, so I sat up and looked around. Everything seemed to be just fine, and I didn't hear anything, so I decided to go back to bed. But as soon as I lay down, I heard the noise of something falling coming from the living room. This made me sit up in bed and be completely silent. I heard my wife wake up, and she asked me what that noise was. I told her it was probably nothing and I would go check it out, but I was actually pretty concerned because we didn't really have anything that would just fall over randomly. I slowly walked to the bedroom door and opened it. As soon as I opened the door, I was looking directly at a man who was in our house. He was wearing an orange ski mask, and I slammed the door shut as soon as I saw him. He had probably been just about 10 feet away. I ran over to the phone and called the police. Things got really quiet in the rest of the house, so I thought the man had run away, and I told the police that I thought they had ran off. But after I was done talking to the police on the phone, I heard another noise in my house. This creeped me out pretty badly. I hoped whoever it was would not come in the bedroom. My wife and I stayed in the room, armed with whatever heavy objects we could get our hands on. It was some pretty tense moments waiting for the police to arrive, hoping that the door to the bedroom wouldn't open. I knew the man was still in the house because we had heard movements, but thankfully they weren't coming from near our bedroom. Finally, the police arrived, and I saw flashing lights coming down the street. The police made entrance to the house and eventually got to the bedroom. I assumed they had caught the man, but then they asked me where I thought he went. I told them I had heard noises from the living room, and they ended up searching the entire house, but the man was never found. It turns out I had left the back door open from the fire we had had, and the man just walked right in. I suppose that's the same way he left too, but it just scares me that he was never caught. It's also a little strange that he didn't appear to take anything either.